In September 1971, a woman nobody in the Grateful Dead had ever met picked up the phone and called Jerry Garcia at his house. She didn't ask if the band needed a piano player. She told him they did. Quote, "Keith is your next piano player," end quote. And the thing that makes this story even stranger? She was right. Within 3 months, both she and her husband, Keith Godchaux, would be standing on stage with the Dead. But 8 years later, in February of '79, both would be gone. And for decades, fans argued about why. This is the story of Donna Jean Godchaux, the only woman to ever perform as a full member of the Grateful Dead. The story of how one phone call changed everything, and the real reason it all fell apart. To understand that phone call, you have to go back to October 4th, 1970. Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco. Donna Jean Thatcher had just arrived in California a few months earlier, leaving behind one of the most successful session singing careers in American music. This wasn't some aspiring singer hoping to make it. She'd already made it. At Rick Hall's Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, Donna had sung background vocals on Percy Sledge's "When a Man Loves a Woman," that song that makes grown men cry at weddings. Donna was there in the studio when they recorded it. She'd worked with Elvis Presley on "Suspicious Minds" and "In the Ghetto," sessions for Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding, Boz Scaggs, Neil Diamond. And here's what makes her Muscle Shoals story even more remarkable. Black artists were genuinely surprised when they discovered that Donna and her group Southern Comfort were white. She'd absorbed the soul and gospel tradition so completely that her voice transcended the racial boundaries of 1960s Alabama. In that era, in that place, that was extraordinary. Muscle Shoals in the 60s was producing some of the most authentic soul music in America. And Donna Jean Thatcher was right in the middle of it, harmonizing on tracks that would define a generation. She had the career most singers dream about, and she walked away from it. Years later, she'd explain it simply. Quote, "I had always wanted to go to California. I just knew that I had to go," end quote. She told Jerry Wexler at Atlantic Records she was leaving. Wexler was one of the most powerful producers in music, and Donna was telling him she needed to chase something else. She wasn't pursuing a music career in San Francisco. She was pursuing adventure. But then came that night at Winterland. The Grateful Dead took the stage, and Donna turned to the complete stranger standing next to her and said something that would change her entire life. Quote, "When I sing again, it's going to be with that band," end quote. Not if I sing again, when. She described the performance as magical. Quote, "It was just crackling with this spiritual type energy," end quote. Now think about the timeline. That moment at Winterland was October of '70. She met pianist Keith Godchaux the following summer. They fell in love immediately. She heard him play at a jazz gig and recognized something special. And by that September, less than a year after her Winterland epiphany, she was making that phone call to Jerry Garcia. From declaration to action in under 12 months. Think about what that phone call actually required. How do you even get Jerry Garcia's home phone number in 1971? Keith had classical training, but preferred not to overthink the music. He told Donna he didn't want to listen to Dead albums. He wanted to play it. But what gave Donna the confidence to make that call? She wasn't some starry-eyed fan asking for a favor. She was a professional session musician who'd spent years reading artists and understanding what bands needed. She'd sat in studio control rooms with producers like Jerry Wexler and Rick Hall. She'd watched them assemble the perfect combination of musicians for a particular sound. She knew when someone had the right feel, and she knew Keith had it. So when she got Jerry on the phone and declared, "Keith is your next piano player," she wasn't guessing. She was pitching. And somehow, impossibly, Jerry Garcia agreed to an audition. The first rehearsal happened soon after. Donna remembers it crackling with spiritual energy. Keith Godchaux officially debuted with the band on October 19th, '71. But what about Donna? She'd made that declaration at Winterland. "When I sing again, it's going to be with that band." On New Year's Eve, 1971, She stepped on stage at Winterland, the same venue where she'd had her epiphany. Bob Weir brought her up to sing One More Saturday Night. And just like that, Donna Jean Godchaux made her debut. By March of '72, she was a regular member. So what actually changed when Donna joined? Because this is where the story gets really interesting from a musical perspective. The Dead's vocal arrangements had always been fairly traditional. Jerry Garcia sang lead, Bob Weir provided harmony. Two male voices doing what rock bands had done for years. But Donna's arrival introduced something completely different. 3-part harmonies that didn't just hit the traditional thirds and fifths. They interchanged. They moved. They breathed. Listen to Playing in the Band before and after Donna joined. The difference is unmistakable. Same song, completely different emotional texture. That elastic, gospel-tinged quality suddenly appeared in songs like Row Jimmy and Eyes of the World. And that makes perfect sense when you remember where Donna came from. She described herself as, quote, a genuine half-breed, end quote. Half Muscle Shoals soul, half San Francisco psychedelia. And nowhere was this fusion more obvious than in the Jerry Garcia Band. In the mid-'70s, Jerry would come to Donna and Keith's house in Stinson Beach. They called it Studio R, and they'd pull out old gospel albums studying the vocal arrangements. Quote, we had all these gospel albums, Garcia was really into that, end quote. Donna's Muscle Shoals roots were directly shaping Jerry's solo project. They recorded covers of traditional gospel songs. They explored the vocal interplay that defined the black church tradition. From January of '76 through November of '78, the Godchaux were essential members of the Jerry Garcia Band, bringing that gospel foundation to every performance. And then came the songwriting. In May of '77, Jerry Garcia encouraged Donna to write a song for the upcoming album Terrapin Station. The result was Sunrise. And the story behind that song opens up an entirely different side of the Dead. She wrote lyrics about awakening and spiritual connection, about the moment when darkness gives way to light. The song debuted at the Palladium in New York on May 1st, '77. The Dead would perform it 30 times total. Not a huge number, but significant enough to show the band valued her contribution. And then, 1 week after Sunrise debuted, came the show. May 8th, 1977. Barton Hall at Cornell University. What's often called the greatest Grateful Dead show ever recorded. Fans have debated this for decades. Is it really the best show? Maybe, maybe not. But it's definitely one of the most important. And Donna's presence is all over it. Her harmonies on Scarlet Begonias into Fire on the Mountain are legendary. That transition, that build, that release. Her voice weaving in and out of Jerry's guitar lines. And then Morning Dew. Her voice on that song still gives people chills. This was the peak. So what happened? Because less than 2 years after Cornell, in February of '79, both Donna and Keith Godchaux played their final show with the band. And for years, fans had a simple explanation. Donna couldn't sing. Go into any Dead forum and you'll find the same debates. Her voice was off-key. She wailed. She screamed. But what those critics didn't know changes everything. In a later interview, Donna explained what was actually happening during those live performances. Quote, I had this little tiny box in front of me. My voice doesn't sound like me because I am screaming into the microphone trying to hear myself. End quote. Monitor issues. The technology of '70s live sound simply wasn't built for the way the Dead performed. Massive improvised jams, volume constantly shifting, different instruments taking the lead at different moments. And Donna, trying to hear her own voice in that swirling mix, pushed harder and harder into a monitor system that couldn't give her what she needed. Think about what that must have been like. You're a trained session singer used to professional studio conditions. Suddenly you're on stage with one of the loudest bands in rock and roll. You can't hear yourself, so you push your voice harder, trying to find your pitch in the chaos. And the audience hears you straining, assumes you're off-key, and blames your talent instead of the technology. The same fans who criticized her for being off-key had no idea she literally couldn't hear herself. But that's not actually why she and Keith left. Keith Godchaux had developed a serious heroin addiction. His playing had declined noticeably. Deadheads noticed he'd sometimes play with just one hand, or he'd simply double whatever Jerry was playing instead of creating his own melodic lines. The improvisational fire that made him special was dimming, and Donna and Keith's marriage was struggling under the weight of the addiction. The spiritual energy that had crackled at that first rehearsal was gone. In February of '79, after a band meeting, the Dead and the Godchaux mutually agreed to part ways. It wasn't about Donna's vocals, it was about Keith's addiction and the toll it was taking on everyone. Donna later reflected on those years with remarkable grace. Quote, "You have to be tough getting into the Grateful Dead. Those years with the Grateful Dead are my greatest memories of all time." End quote. After leaving, Donna and Keith formed the Heart of Gold Band. They were trying to recapture something, trying to find their way back to the music that had brought them together. But in July of 1980, Keith Godchaux died in a car accident. He was only 32 years old, the same age Jerry Garcia had been when the Godchaux joined the band. Donna was suddenly a widow at 33, but she kept performing. In 1995, she attended a Dead show in Birmingham, Alabama, back in her home state, back where Muscle Shoals had shaped her voice. A few months before Jerry Garcia's death, they had breakfast together. She described it as, quote, "very magical," end quote. They talked about the old days, about Keith, about what they'd created together. And then came the moment that proves everything. In 2016, Dead & Company invited Donna to guest at several shows. Bonnaroo, Citi Field, Fenway Park in Boston on July 16th, The Gorge. At Fenway, she sang on every major song in both sets. They love each other, playing in the band, Fire on the Mountain. And you know what happened? The crowd went absolutely wild. 58,000 people watched that performance online. A new generation of Deadheads hearing what fans at Cornell had heard. That Muscle Shoals soul mixed with psychedelic harmonies. That genuine half-breed sound.
Miss Donna Jean.
With modern sound technology, with proper monitors, with everything the 1970s couldn't provide, the truth became obvious. She'd always been able to sing. Donna Jean still performs today with her band, The Tricksters. She re-recorded her song, Shelter, during the pandemic. Quote, "This song is even more relevant today than it was when I wrote it," end quote. She survived Keith's death. She survived Jerry's death. She survived decades of criticism from fans who didn't understand the technical challenges she faced. And looking back at her entire career, one thing becomes crystal clear. That phone call in September of '71 wasn't just audacious, it was accurate. Keith was the right piano player, and Donna belonged on that stage. For 8 years, she brought something to the Dead that they'd never had before. A voice trained in the gospel and soul tradition of Muscle Shoals. A woman willing to stand on stage with 6 men and hold her own. A songwriter who captured the spiritual energy of Rolling Thunder in Sunrise. A professional who knew exactly what Jerry Garcia needed for his band before he did. She once told an interviewer how she handled the sexism of the music industry. Quote, "I just chose to ignore it because to acknowledge it was to make it real to me." End quote. That's how she survived. Not by fighting every battle, but by focusing on the music. The criticisms about her vocals were never about talent. They were about technology and circumstances most fans never understood. And when those circumstances finally aligned at Fenway Park in 2016, 45 years after that phone call, the truth revealed itself. She'd always belonged, not because she was bold enough to call Jerry Garcia, but because of everything that boldness represented. The confidence of someone who'd recorded with Elvis and Aretha, the vision of someone who understood that Keith's jazz training would mesh perfectly with the Dead's improvisational style, the courage to leave success in Alabama to chase something spiritual in San Francisco, and the wisdom to know, standing in Winterland in October of '70, that she was witnessing something magical, something she needed to be part of. That stranger she turned to that night probably never knew what happened next, never knew that the woman beside him would make that declaration come true. When I sing again, it's going to be with that band. And she did. That's the real story of Donna Jean Godchaux, the woman who picked up the phone, changed the Grateful Dead forever, and proved that sometimes the most audacious move is simply telling the truth.